Greetings everyone and happy Independence Day. This will be a quick video on another rework from last season that didn't quite work out as I'd hoped. The finish I applied on the Cockpit sole last year looked great when it was applied, but after only one short season of sailing, this is what happened to it. It peeled off easily and barewood was again exposed to the environment. This is because the finish I applied had absolutely no UV protection. Now, I suspected that might be an issue for a few seasons, but was really way off. It didn't even last a few months. The first step was to sand off the old finish and get some new fresh wood ready for the new sealing process. I'm really counting on the new application I apply to keep from having to do this again for a long time. This time I'm using two products. The first is TotalBoat's penetrating 2-to-1 epoxy. It does just what the name implies. It not only penetrates seams, cracks, and screw holes, but penetrates deeper into the wood so that the protection goes beyond just a surface barrier. Since this is a 2-to-1 epoxy, I want to explain how to use these graduated measuring cups, which many people have a lot of confusion about. But once you understand them, they are extremely easy and convenient to use and to mix up all kinds of products. First, you select the ratio you're going to need to use. Let's look at the first one, a 1-to-1. And we'll make it simple by starting with 1 unit of mix. First, you add part A of your mixture until it comes up to the first 1 on the left side scale. Then you add part B until the liquid level line comes up to the 1 on the right side of the scale. You are then assured you have a perfect 1-to-1 ratio. If you wanted to mix up 3 units of a 1-to-1, you would pour part A until the liquid level comes up to the 3 on the left side of the scale, and then pour in part B until the liquid level comes up to the second 3 on the right-hand side of the scale. Let's look again at the 2-to-1 ratio for the penetrating epoxy. I'll start with mixing up just 1 unit. First, I'll fill the cup up with the epoxy resin, which is part A up to the 1 on the left side of the scale. Then I add the hardener, part B, up to the second 1 on the right side of the scale. Mix and it's ready to pour. Applying this product is really simple. I had the Cockpit sole cleaned and blew out any dust using a leaf blower. Just put it on the surface and let it spread out even. Couldn't be easier. It gets into the seams, the screw holes, and evens out to make a perfectly even surface. I just keep mixing up more batches, giving them a good stir for several minutes before the pour. Most people who have problems with epoxy, I think, don't really mix the parts together enough. It's really important to get these two reagents thoroughly mixed to work properly. The folks at TotalBoat told me that penetrating epoxy works well in small, thin coats, of which I put 2 down. Once the entire surface was covered and began to set, I added another layer before the first one cured all the way, so that it would properly bond with the previous application. Once it cures, all epoxies of this grade produce something called blush, which is a waxy byproduct of the chemical reaction of the resin and the hardener. If you add another layer after it cures, the blush will not allow the second application to bond well with the first, and you can get delamination. This is also a nice product to apply because it doesn't have any VOCs, or heavy volatile organic compounds. Nevertheless, I applied it outside where my boat was residing for the moment, and I would suggest not to apply penetrating epoxy when the maple tree a few yards away decides to deploy its spring seed chaff with every little slightest breeze. Despite my best efforts to keep it out, my brand new epoxy sole Cockpit has a few artifacts embedded in it. As I mentioned in a previous video, it gives it some character. Oh well. But after it was all in, I was really pleased with the results. Everything in the Cockpit sole was now sealed and no water whatsoever was going to get down into any seams, between planks, screw holes, or any other wood in the cockpit. Exactly what I wanted. And after it cured, the next step was to remove the blush. Jamestown Distributors tells me the best way to clean this up is with soap, water, and a Scotch-Brite pad. After I cleaned it off, I then gave the surface a light sanding to rough it up a little bit so that it wouldn't be quite so slick if it ever got wet. I am going to cover the Cockpit sole up eventually with a wooden grate I make once I get the time. But for now, I need to just wrap this part up. The next step was to sand it down slightly and use this product from TotalBoat for surface prep to remove any dust contaminants. Their de-waxer and surface prep solvent wash has all the benefits of acetone in cleaning and preparing the surface, but without the volatile flashpoint of acetone. Now, there are a lot of things I still use acetone for, but I have really come to like this product for cleaning up surfaces like fiberglass and epoxy in preparation for a high-quality finish coat product. But there is still one problem. Epoxy has no appreciable UV protection, and if I left it as is, it would begin to decompose with UV light just like the previous finish I applied. So TotalBoat recommended this product, Halcyon. It comes in a clear and amber finish, and I chose to use clear for this application. It claims to have superior UV protection and tough as nails. The TotalBoat rep that recommended it to me told me that she uses it on her Marshall cat boat and it's fantastic. That's good to know that people who sell it also use it and speak highly of it. It's an aqueous product, which means you can thin it out if necessary and clean up from it with simple tap water. That's a nice advantage. And the bag it comes with makes it easy to mix and use just what you need. I wasn't sure what to think about the bag idea at first, but I really like it much better than having to deal with a can. I first applied it with a chip brush to get in every corner and small space I could. It dried out in about an hour, and you can add more without sanding between coats, another big plus. I added 2 final coats using a roller on top of the previous 2 brushed on coats and let it cure. Really pleased with the results. Yet it doesn't look like wood encased in plastic. The character of the wood is still very dominant. I highly recommend the TotalBoat penetrating epoxy for this application, as well as the Halcyon. I'll give you a review of all of it at the end of the sailing season as well, but I feel a lot better about knowing it's secure from water incursion into the wood from the epoxy, and it has a tough layer of UV and mechanical protection on top. Again, all the products you see here in this video can be purchased from TotalBoat and Jamestown distributors with a discount by using the special promo code in the show notes below. I also like the Halcyon so much I had a few other woodworking projects on the boat I wanted to use on it. In the next episode, I'll show you the lazarette covers I made to go under the seats, and the TotalBoat wood sealer and Halcyon I used on them. Spoiler alert, they came out really nice, and the product put a finish on the woodwork that has sold me on using it from here on out. Hope everyone has a happy and safe Independence Day, and we'll see you next time. Fair winds and following seas.